Greetings and welcome to an LGR thing. And this delightful thing is the IBM ThinkPad 701C, released in March of 1995 starting at a price of $3,799 US. And it has one of the best mechanical gimmicks of any computer ever made. Haha, let's look at that again. That is one of the most satisfying combinations of sight, sound, and feeling I've experienced in a piece of technology. And a big thanks to Sam for letting me borrow this fantastic machine for this video, because yeah, these are not easy to come by, especially in as decent shape as this one is. And it really is all because of that innovative keyboard mechanism. The 701 ThinkPads were the only ones to have ever come with this keyboard, which, by the way, was branded as the TrackRite by IBM, but it's more widely known as the Butterfly keyboard. And yeah, I just can't stop messing with this and looking at it. Even looking closer here, look at this piece of metal that moves around when you open or close the computer. The lid moves against this metal piece right here, which slides up against another piece. And then the keyboard's two halves either open or close in unison. Oh, it's wonderful. And so was the person that originally conceived of the idea. The late inventor and mechanical engineer Dr. John Caritas, who thought up the idea by playing with building blocks with his daughter. The story goes there were two triangular pieces that, when moved side to side, gave him the idea that IBM was looking for a keyboard that could fold up and become smaller. He immediately jotted down the idea and went back to the IBM Research Division in Westchester County, New York. And in every sense of the phrase, it became an instant hit, with the design receiving 27 different awards, and there's even one on permanent display at the Manhattan Museum of Modern Art. One of the very few computers to have that honor. It belongs in a museum indeed. But before we dive into more technical details, let's take a trip back to the first half of the 1990s, where there was a growing industry trend of releasing ultra-portable notebook computers, often referred to as sub-notebooks. Machines like the Compaq Contura Aero, the Gateway Handbook, the HP OmniBook, and the Toshiba Libretto were notable examples, all of which attempted to combine the usefulness of MS-DOS and Windows 3.1 with the smallest footprint and lightest weight possible, combined with the color LCD screens of the day, which ranged anywhere from 7 to 9 inches or so. Now, of course, there were several compromises that had to be made in order to make this happen, such as removing standard-sized parallel and serial ports and all sorts of other ports, foregoing the internal floppy drive, and relying on docking stations and external add-ons to reintroduce those features as the user desired. And another obvious way to bring down the size was to decrease the physical dimensions of the keyboard itself, fitting more in line with the 4:3 aspect ratio of the displays so as to minimize bezels, but also making the keys smaller and more cramped. Naturally, IBM wanted in on the action and experimented with the form factor as well, with machines like the IBM ThinkPad 500 in 1993. But as with many sub-notebooks, the compromised keyboard and screen meant that it was less comfortable to use for any length of time for any serious work. And considering this was geared largely towards business users on the go, this was not great. And that's why the introduction of the TrackRite keyboard made so much sense for a particular need at a particular time in the 90s. By packing away the keyboard when the unit was closed, you could have both the small footprint for portability and have a full-sized keyboard for ease of use. And then combined with a slightly larger VGA display that was brighter and sharper than previous models, and the 701 was precisely the right computer for precisely the right moment. Well, a portion of the right moment at least. Because while it earned plenty of praise and actually became the best-selling notebook of 1995, it only lasted about a year on the market. IBM announced the 701 line's discontinuation in February of 1996, ceasing production in June of the same year. And there were a couple of reasons for that. For one thing, the 701 was originally meant to come out in 1994, right at the height of the 90s sub-notebook craze. Would have made plenty of sense then, but by the time it was on the market in 1995, customer preferences and available technology were quickly changing and left it behind. Within a matter of months, the 701 lost a lot of its appeal with the arrival of well-built 12-inch LCD panels, which were not only bigger and more desirable, but they also fit in with a full-size keyboard a little bit more. To quote the board's creator, Mr. Caritas, the butterfly keyboard was no longer necessary because people moved to larger displays. Where the butterfly approach makes sense is where you want the largest keyboard possible in combination with an 8 or 10-inch display. And if you look at reviews from the time period, they often mention that the 701 was also hampered by the 486 CPUs offered with the device. Depending on your benchmark of choice, even the fastest 75 MHz DX4 CPU benchmarked at about the same speed as a competing system's 50 MHz DX2. The 701 also used nickel-cadmium batteries, which were rather dated by 1995 and only lasted 1 hour and 40 minutes or so, when 2 hours was considered by many as the minimum acceptable runtime. But that sure didn't stop people from buying it for the time it was on the market and becoming quite the computing collectible in later years. And not just collectible in a desirable sense, these are not cheap either. Currently running anywhere from $400 to $900 for a nice 701C, and a bit less than half that for a 701CS model. Speaking of which, yeah, there were two main models. The main differences between the C and the CS is that the C came with a 10.4-inch TFT active matrix LCD screen, while the CS used a dual scan LCD screen of the same size. They both have a native resolution of 640 by 480, but the CS model's dual scan monitor was a cheaper and lower quality type of passive matrix panel that isn't suited for much beyond static imagery. But between the two models, there were a broad range of configurations available, starting with the processor, which was an Intel 486 in either the DX2 or DX4 models, running at 50 or 75 MHz respectively, and the one I have comes with the latter. You also have the option of 4 or 8 MB of RAM installed on board, and it supports up to 32 MB of additional RAM. As for the hard drive, you got the option of 360 or 540 megabytes, with a 720 meg upgrade option available from IBM, and you had a choice between a couple operating systems, this one being configured with PC-DOS 6.3 and Windows 3.11. Or OS2 Warp was available as an option on the 75 MHz model. You also get a 1 MB CT65545 VISA local bus graphics chipset, a 16-bit ES688 audio drive Sound Blaster Pro compatible audio chipset, a 14.4K data fax modem, an IRDA 1.0 compatible infrared communications interface, a single Type 3 or 2 Type 2 PCM-CIA slots, as well as a connection for a 3.5-inch ThinkPad external floppy disk drive, which is a bit annoying since that particular drive is exclusive to these machines. Something else to keep in mind if you're looking for a 701 are the battery issues, which of course is common across all sorts of older computers like this, but in particular the NiCad battery that they used in these tends to leak pretty badly, sometimes damaging the internals, but there are some guides online showing you how to rebuild these batteries using rechargeable AA's. Not something that I've done, but there it is. Another battery that is also a pain to deal with is the CMOS battery. The 701 uses a Varta V30H, or sometimes a V40H I gather, which is a 1.2 volt 43 mAh button cell battery, and that is soldered directly to the bottom of one of the motherboard layers. That's fun. You can also use a more standard CR2032 or BR1225 battery, but you still need to solder it to the board, so ideally you'll want one with soldering legs already attached. Also, it is worth noting that the case on these is notoriously easy to damage these days. As with many IBM ThinkPads of the era, it uses a soft, kind of rubbery finish. But over the years, it started to deteriorate and has gotten a little gummy and weird. So I kind of feel like I'm walking on eggshells every time I set it up and start using it, just trying so hard not to scuff it up, doubly so since I'm only borrowing this unit. But disregarding that bit of anxiety, using the 701C is quite normal. Once you get past the keyboard mechanism, it really is just a mid-90s ThinkPad with the classic track point nub and the classic ThinkPad keys and key mechanisms, and yeah, it's just a pleasure to use. And it has that nice VGA display here, at least on this TFT version, 256 color graphics on a portable computer in 1995. Yeah, this is a pretty good example, all things considered. And you get a lovely Sound Blaster compatible sound chip, so it's pretty fantastic for playing mid-90s DOS games. Well, it's pretty fantastic if you can actually get the games on there in the first place, and that can be a bit of an ordeal if you just have the computer itself. After all, at the end of the day, it is a mid-90s sub-notebook, and all the missing features means getting data onto or off of the machine is a chore. If you don't have a ThinkPad disk drive with the proper 701 compatible cable, which I don't, then that is just unfortunate. And of course, it doesn't have a serial or parallel port unless you attach a dock or a port replicator like this IBM Multiport 2, which adds a very handy pass-through for PS2 keyboard and mouse connections, a serial and parallel port, audio in and out ports, VGA out, and a DC power connector. This thing is a must-have for this system as far as I'm concerned, especially if you're not a big fan of the built-in TrackPoint mouse nub and want to use another pointing device, or dare I say it, another keyboard, And you may also be able to use the PCM-CIA slots to hook in other storage devices and adapters, provided they're compatible with the operating system that's installed on the computer, and in my case, very few things worked. So yeah, it really does end up being a bit of a commitment to want to use the 701C for very long. As much of a pleasure as it is in the short term to use, it's also one of the least enjoyable ThinkPads to use, just due to all the limitations of the hardware. However, that is just not the point. There are plenty of great IBM ThinkPads that type well, have tons of built-in slots and ports and features and whatnot, but none of them except the 701 have the TrackWrite keyboard. And that counts for an awful lot when so many of the other ThinkPads tend to blur together a bit. It's just so satisfying to look at and to feel and to show off and, of course, to put in a YouTube video. So I hope that you enjoyed checking out this legend of a computer. And if you did enjoy this video, then great, I'm glad to hear it. I love covering old IBM computers and just computers and hardware and software of all kinds. So if you're into that kind of thing, stick around, LGR is your channel. And as per usual, I thank you very much for watching.